What's up, Internet? Welcome to another episode of Gizmo Slip. Brandon Baldwin here. We're going to be looking at the Asus T300LA, Asus's new hybrid laptop. It's a 2-in-1. It comes completely off. It's kind of an alternative to the Microsoft Surface 2 Pro, but I think it fills more of the laptop void. Anyway, I'm really excited to review it, so we're going to dive into that right now. First thing you will notice is that this is a completely aluminum encasement. So it's got aluminum right here. This is a all glass seamless front on the actual display itself. And it has an aluminum back as well. So very, very classy overall look. And I think it's honestly probably the classiest 2-in-1 hybrid tablet laptop combo that I've seen come out, period. I think it's much classier than the Surface 2 Pro, the Sony Tap 11, as well as the Yoga 2 Pro. Those ones just, they don't have the same elegant brushed aluminum design. Now, let's get into how the wireless keyboard actually functions. So this is a completely wireless keyboard and mouse. That means that you can completely separate it without losing connection. So the keyboard still works even though it's separated, which is really, really useful within certain contexts. I think in general, it's a little bit more reliable than if, for example, you have a dock that has a data port right here, and that has positive and negatives in and of itself. For example, if there's a dock with a data port, oftentimes the keyboard dock will get power exclusively from that data port, and there's no need for a separate battery in the keyboard itself. But there is a separate battery that requires charging, and you have to plug it in with a micro USB. So that can be a hassle because you have to plug in two things when you plug this in for charging at night: the micro USB as well as the actual power port for the laptop head itself. The touchpad itself is actually quite nice. It does support multi-touch gestures, including scrolling up and down. Swiping 3 down, for example, will take you to the home screen, desktop, back to the different apps. You can use the side gestures, like for example, swiping in from the left will switch apps to whatever app you were last using, and cycle through the current apps that you have open. Swiping from the right will bring up the settings page, so you can go to the control panel, stuff like that. So the gestures work quite well with the touchpad itself. So if you want to use it more as a pure laptop-oriented style, it actually works quite well. Now, the keyboard itself is not backlit. That's very important. I do think that they messed up. They should have had a backlit keyboard on this. Now, I do not know how long the battery itself will last for the keyboard dock and mouse. I've found that it lasts at least as long as the tablet itself, almost always, unless you just forget to plug it in for a couple days. I've had this for about a week and a half or so, and so far I've really enjoyed using it. If you want to take this into full tablet mode, all you have to do is press this little button right here, and it goes into full tablet mode. Now, this has a magnetic strip along the bottom, so docking is extremely easy. It kind of snaps in, and it's not hard to do at all, unlike some of the previous transformer tablets that I have seen come out from Asus. Now, on the front here, you have a webcam, an adaptive display brightness control, and I did have to deactivate that because it did reduce the brightness on the display itself quite a bit, and the display is actually quite nice. The colors are fantastic. It is very bright. It's not as bright as some out there, but is still quite good. Now, the start menu button will just take you to the desktop or to whatever app you were previously using. Along the bottom here, you have a magnetic strip. This does not have a connector port, which is how typically most docks would use the tablet, but that's not the way in this setup. This wireless keyboard dock does not have any USBs. All it has is a charging port for a USB. It does not actually have any data that goes through this. There's no battery in the dock. There is no hard drive in the dock. So there's no need for an actual data connection along the port here. Now, it has a micro SD for storing, pictures, photos, music, stuff like that. Along the left here, you have a USB 3.0, a power port, a headphone port, and a micro HDMI. I have not tested the micro HDMI, but I'm assuming it works just fine. Now you have some exhaust vents. This is where the air goes in. You have the volume rocker. Here's the power. This is where the air goes out the top of the laptop, which I think is much better than the Yoga 13. The Yoga 13 has it coming out the bottom, which directs a lot of air onto your lap if you're using it in laptop mode, which is pretty annoying. a couple of microphone sensor ports right there, and then you have the speaker ports. And the speakers are decent. It's probably a little bit better than average for tablet speakers. And then of course on the back you have a 5 megapixel camera. This is actually quite useful if you actually use this for taking photos. It can do 1080p video as well as photos. So and it produces decent quality. Think of a phone camera from 2 years ago. That's about the quality you're going to get. So Facebook photos, stuff like that, it'll do quite well. It's just a little extra something that they threw in there. Now, as far as its touch interface, it works quite well. It's very snappy, highly responsive. All of the touch apps work excellently, as you would expect them to work, for example, on an iPad. The finger response is highly accurate, and it's instantly responsive, which is really great. Now, as far as browsing the web, I've found that Internet Explorer is actually a better alternative than using Chrome, just because the animation is smoother. So, for example, you could see how smooth that was, and then this is just really stuttery. Now, Chrome works better in some instances. I think it registers some of the touch a little bit more accurately. Now, what kind of touch apps are there available on the Windows Marketplace? There's going to be not nearly as many as there are for the iPad or Android. Now, there are going to be some. For example, you can go to Top Paid, and you'll find Angry Birds, Asphalt 8, there's going to be a number of games. There's going to be some productivity apps. But overall, most of the apps that you're going to be using with this are going to be the ones that you install in Windows and use. So like the full Microsoft Office suite, full Skype, full web browsing, Photoshop, Adobe, just literally anything that you need to use, you can use it because it's a full Windows 8 laptop interface. Now, as far as gaming goes, this is Tomb Raider. It is capable of playing Tomb Raider. It gets about 25 frames per second or so, roughly at 720p, which is enough to enjoy the game, but it certainly is not at max settings. If you're going to be able to play a lot of the modern games on very, very low settings, or some of the older games on medium to higher settings. So, for example, Counter-Strike Source or Counter-Strike Global Offensive is going to play very, very well on this particular tablet. So there's some games that you can play without a doubt and fully get the full experience from, and some games that you only get part of the experience from, and some games you're just not going to be able to play at all. So I did also load Batman Arkham City on here, and that got 25 frames per second as well at 720p. I also loaded Dota 2, which played at 1080p fairly well at around 22 frames per second. Now, other games like Battlefield 4 is never going to be able to run on this particular tablet, and that's just an unfortunate reality that you have when you go into a hybrid laptop tablet. So, in conclusion then, I think this is a tremendous value for the money. If you're going to be looking at a tablet hybrid interface, so you're looking at the Microsoft Surface Pro 2, the Tab 11, or you're just looking at an awesome Ultrabook and you're like, well, let me see what the hybrid category has to offer, I think this is a great option and you should definitely consider it. It's one of the cheapest options currently on the market. It is about $800, $785 currently on Amazon when I checked today. Now this was going for $1,000. I don't know if this is a temporary price drop. I don't think so. I think you're looking at it around $800 plus tax. And keep in mind, this comes with the keyboard dock, whereas the Microsoft Surface Pro 2 does not come with the keyboard. So you're going to have to do another $130 on top of the $1,000 to get the 128 gig SSD that comes in this with an i5. Now, there is a more expensive version that comes with the i7. I think that one is priced at $1,400, and it comes with a 256 gig SSD and 8 gigs of RAM. So it's got quite a few upgrades. Currently, I don't think it's worth it going for the i7 version. Unless you really, really want that 256 gig SSD space. Now, they may have dropped the price on that since I last checked, but I don't think so. I just checked today, and if they're dropping this price from $1,000 to $800, I would think that they would also drop the i7 price to match that, to reflect that. So, overall, great value for the money. Especially if you're looking for something that can completely detached. So there's some advantages to this over the Yoga 13. The Yoga 13 has that keyboard, so when you flip it around, you still have the keyboard on your fingers and stuff, which is a little bit awkward to use. As far as battery life goes, you're going to be looking at about 5.5 to 6 or 7 hours, depending on your brightness settings, whether you have Wi-Fi on, and whether or not you do a lot of surfing of the web, and whether or not you watch videos. If you watch videos, streaming content such on YouTube or streaming video game play, stuff like that, you're going to be looking at closer to 4 hours. If you're going to be playing video games itself, you're going to be looking at around 2 hours of gameplay. If this laptop hybrid tablet combo has piqued your interest at all, I definitely recommend going and checking it out over on Amazon.com or TigerDirect.com. I have a link in the description below to go over to Amazon. If you do use that link and you buy the laptop, it does help fund this show. Speaking of funding this show, a big shout out to Turkish Airlines and a big thank you to them. They are coming up with a pretty hilarious sounding video where we have Kobe and Messi running around taking selfies around the world. I am a fan of Kobe Bryant. I have a signed autographed jersey, as a matter of fact, and I definitely am a big fan of him. So I'm cheering for him, and if you want to go check out that video, that would also help this show. So I have a link in the description for that as well. I hope you enjoyed this review, and I'll bring you more content, more drop tests. We're going to be doing a Nexus 5 drop test next. And so that's in the works already. I will see you guys very soon. Brandon Baldwin signing out.